The next step here is to take these pieces that were part of the mold making process, and I'm going to simulate putting them in the burnout kiln to get the wax out of the plaster. It doesn't just remove the wax, it also kind of sinters the sand grains and all the other elements in here into a homogeneous piece. If you can think of welding ceramics together, almost glazing them together as well. So I'm going to stick them in the forge and light it and bring them up to where they're glowing. And the remnants of poly clay and this masking tape are probably going to smoke a little bit. But it's going to be a good indicator of whether or not that mixture will get the job done. So I'll light the forge and cut to it when they're really, really hot. One interesting thing to note is how fast they're already glowing. I just lit the forge about a minute and a half ago. Kind of a cool effect. Okay, there's the pieces hot. We're going to let them cool down to room temperature to where I can handle them. I do kind of see some warpage going on. I'm going to see if it maybe corrects itself. Heat does weird things to materials. My biggest fear right now is actually not the breakage of the tang insert, it's warping it so it touches the inside of the mold and makes it weirdo handle instead of the right kind. Well, that didn't work. It turns it into basically powder. I mean, that's completely disintegrated. So I'm gonna have to do some research on that. I don't know everything. Sometimes I learn as I go. With the recent problems in the furnace of the test I did on the plaster, I just broke down and ordered some actual investment for making jewelry and small metal castings. So that was, I don't even want to talk about how much this box was. Hopefully that holds up to the heat better than just plaster. And then I did start, while I was waiting for that to show up, I started trying to cast the little pommel piece, and I had some problems with the air in the mold, creating an airlock. Pardon the sniffles, and I came down with something yucky. Excuse me. So then I vented the mold with a drill bit. You can almost see light through just a little bit. And then I cast another one, which did kind of all right, but then they break off because the wax is too brittle for whatever reason. So then I came up with another idea, another solution, if you will. I took hot glue and I squirted them full of hot glue like so. Kind of an injection mold type of thing. And I'll get the other one real quick while I'm talking. And that seemed to work. But I'll show you here in a second. There was a problem posed with that then. The problem was that, grab one here that was like, this is one. No, here's a good one. Where's the icky one? Well, yeah, here's the icky one. Well, these ones here on the edges are rubber or hot glue. The ones around the perimeter are still wax, and they were they broke off coming out when I was demolding. So then I came up with another idea. Well, we're gonna have to make all the points out of glue. So I went and did this a whole bunch of times and made little points like these that can be inserted. See if I can get it on camera here without blocking too much of the view. They can be inserted in the mold before the mold is shut all the way around.
like so. And then when I pour the wax in, believe it or not, it homogenizes pretty well with the hot glue. I've burned my fingers countless times, like doing stuff like this, dropping that in there. I really should have waited. I'll clean this up off camera here, or just now. Anyway, excuse me for a second. He'll be ragged, but he'll still cast metal. Oh, we'll get another one. Got another one. Like I said, I made a bunch of them little guys. And now we'll put this guy in. Hard to do this while holding a camera. We'll let the other hot glue in the bottom set up just a little more. But the result of that has been really good. Now the bill hook is wax, but all the points are hot glue. And they should burn out at relatively the same temperature. So I've made a number of these. I'll set this on a tripod now and close the mold and show you the pouring process. So I take it and I close the mold ever so carefully. I line it up, which because of the contrast, you can kind of see where the part line goes. You just gently kind of massage it around until it all lines up more or less. Again, sorry about the sniffles. I took the Sudafed. The Sudafed is not working yet. And then we just want to lightly clamp this with the clamp, just like as if I was holding it with my hand. I don't want to squeeze it because that'll deform my casting. Just enough to keep it together. I'll move this glue string. Now for the casting, I just cheat and use the propane bottle. Now I just want to dribble this in so that I can make use of the vents so that I get a full casting. And I can see it coming up. Set it on the silicone there. I saw it come up my little riser here too, so the hawk bill of this thing is filled with wax. Now a little later, this wax is going to shrink down, so I'll just add a little and add a little until I get a nice full button on top. Okay. So now that I've got all the sprues and all the little gates and everything connected to all the spikes on the mace head, I'm going to glue it to a board, set the flask around it, and make a hot glue seal around the bottom so the plaster doesn't run out. Or the investment, I should say. It's not normal plaster. I've seen guys try to use normal plaster. And the test I did in my forge, it didn't want to work for me, I don't think. So we'll use the real deal here. Just glue this down. And then I want to make sure that the well of hot glue around the bottom goes all the way around the base so that I don't have a little shell of plaster that's sticking over the end. I don't want anything that can possibly flake off later during the burnout that could cause me issues. And then I'm going to take it a step further and glue down most of these, because otherwise we're going to have issues. I want those to kind of reach the surface, if you will, so that the air can escape while I pour in the metal. And we want to make sure there's a good coverage for the air to reach around. Then, as I said, we take this. Now I made my own flasks because I didn't want to wait for the shipping on ones that you buy, and I couldn't really find the right size of these, especially for the when it comes to casting the handle. It's a rather long piece, so I cut some out of tube. These should work for any kind of pommel I can think of. And several other things too. Just weld this on here with hot glue. I know you can't really see it that well. I'm just putting a bead of glue around. I've got 2 others already done up, so I'll show you when I get this sealed. We'll do some walking around the camera. Gotta get another glue stick stuck in here. This might be more primitive than some of the things you might see like on Man-at-Arms and stuff, because they have all the vacuum chamber stuff and the flasks with the holes in them. Someday I might have that set up. We'll see how many castings I do. Depending on how many custom swords and cool things I get into here. Alright. Got that sealed off. Now we'll kind of do a walk around here. So there's a close-up of the glue bead going around the bottom and the top view. They have kind of plugged in here because my phone's dying. I have 2 more little flasks over there that are done. The glue is pretty well set up. 2 more wax models that need to go in just in case these 3 don't work, or if I want them for other projects. Over there I've got the longer tubes, same diameter for the handle. And then right here behind the computer I've got the core for the tank that makes the plaster version of the tang. I've got that clamped together. And well, as soon as the glue is cooled off on this one, I'm going to take this mixing bowl and the investment and the chart with all of the magical hoodoo on it to mix it up right. It's done by weight and it's a weird ratio. It's not like regular plaster. So I gotta do the math and the algebra to figure all that stuff out and then figure out my volume for all these little things. And here's some of the math I did according to the magic sheets. There's my powder weighed out, my water configured, and I've gone ahead and poured a few pieces. I've got one core laying here. There's a failed core. It broke. I think I moved it too soon. Here's the core mold. Here's of course the pommel ready to be poured. And here are 2 completed pommels. This one's still got the base on it that I got to crack off. And that's where the metal will be poured in once the glue and wax is melted out. It's pretty straightforward from here. I don't think I'm going to juggle a camera while I'm doing it. You add the water first. You add the 3 or the measured powder. Quick little turn with a mixer. Mix it for about 2 to 3 minutes. Pour it in the molds. And don't touch it. Don't bump the bench. Don't do nothing. I guess if you shock it at a certain stage, that may be what happened to that failed core. The instructions are pretty hocus pocus. I've got a bucket of water here to give the beaters a quick rinse because I think my wife might want to use that. I think that was the deal in buying it. Anyway, so I'll mix this up, and then the next bit will be trying to very carefully put that core inside the mold over here for casting the actual handle. Hopefully I don't break them. Hopefully they both survive. Here's a quick shot of the, mold pattern inside the kind of flask where I'm going to pour in the plaster I have pre-measured here. And this one's different. This one's all wax because these cores kept breaking. I'd pull them out of the mold over here and they would just keep breaking. So I did get one to work. And he's down there. He's molded up already. That one does have a plastic core running through the wax handle. Hopefully he works. If he doesn't work out, plan B here. Grab the handle. Worst case scenario, this will be all be bronze. I cut my welds off here, cut this plate off, braze it onto this handle and I've got plan B. That maybe should be the way I did it to begin with and just riveted it on here. For future, if I make another one in the future, that's probably what I'll do. It's a lot easier. Another option would be to make the core out of, it's called water-soluble wax. Make the core out of that, then pour, you know, the main body out of regular wax. You throw it in a tub of water, and the water dissolves the core. I'm kind of learning some new stuff as I go here. So, but we're just waiting for the hot glue to cure. Make sure my little wax weld down there in the bottom is good, and this isn't tilting off to the side too much. I'll mix and pour. It's pretty straightforward. It just goes in there like, you know, cake mix. Making muffins, kind of. Then after that, I'm going to focus back on the blade and getting the action really super smooth while these are setting around. I've got the 3 pommels. I'm trying to increase my odds of success. Just as a reference here, this is another project while those molds cure for the Klingon dagger. This pile of dust here is the regular plaster core and button that I just tested to see if it handled the temperature for burnout, and it crumbled. Well, here's one of those extra pucks I poured. And the reason it did explode because it spalled inside because there was still moisture contact. But this is it after. And I can crumble it in my hand, but it held up much better under the heat. That stuff absolutely completely turned to dust. So the neat thing about this is, I think part of the reason it did what it just did now is because of moisture in it, because this piece here is still really hard. So if I let those cure long enough to get most of the moisture out before I slowly roast them to get the wax out, the chances are it's going to actually work a lot better than the regular plaster. So that was in the forge for probably 3 hours. So the instructions for the powder say to burn the mold out for 3 hours at 350 degrees, and then to actually put the mold in an oven for 1300 degrees for the bigger ones, up to 6 hours before we actually pour the mold. So it's important for this to be able to hold that 1300, 1200 degree temperature. Actually, this probably got all the way up to 2000 degrees, which is why it's powdering. One reason it's turning to powder. And that may be the case with the regular plaster too, but this did hold up a lot better. And it's a little bit more insurance to use the right product for what I'm doing.